as Daisy said, our next person up will be Miss Dee Dee with special needs transportation of special needs students. So help me make her welcome.
Good morning again. He's really tall. Excuse me as I pull this off. I hate that sound. Daisy did forget one thing. If you want to do field trips, you have to have a slip filled out that says that you state that. Please hold your hand up. She's going to come around with field trip slips. Now, that goes for my sped drivers, too. If you want to do a field trip or you want to be accessible to those field trips as she assigns them, please go ahead and raise your hand, and Daisy will get those slips out to you. While we're doing announcements, my sped drivers, if you will see me at the break, I have our pre-printed timesheets. It already has our time in on it. You only need to put your name and your ID number and then sign the bottom. So that way we get everybody's time in squarely, especially since we had that extra meeting yesterday. We held you overtime. Hope the pizza helped because you held you overtime. My name is Dee Dee, and I'm doing the special education transportation coordination, and that means that I'm still learning. But if you want to know more about special ed transportation, if you'll look in your handbook on pages 36 through 38, that is a section specifically about special ed transportation. If you've ever wondered how the kids get on there, it is on your bus, on a special bus. It is not a simple process. We have a very diverse population on those buses. It could be anything from medical needs to special behavior needs to emotional needs. That diverse group gets to you on purpose because there's been a meeting called an ARC meeting that includes the principals, the parents, the teachers, and transportation. We discuss the specific needs. When you get all those people in one place, it takes a minute. So they don't come to you, and when you get, sometimes we'll get a kid that ends up on the special bus, and it appears that they just appeared there. They did not. There was a whole process that got them there. That ARC meeting then changes their IEP, their individual educational plan. That individual plan talks about the specific needs for that child. So it doesn't matter what landed them on a special needs bus. Their special could be anything. But once that IEP and that ARC and maybe a 504 for a medical need are all put into place, then we are bound to do that specific thing. It is our policy, it is our state law that we have to service that kid. So I don't mean to sound mean when I tell you I don't care that you don't like the kid or the kid's need. That's not a problem. Whatever that IEP and that 504 and that ARC meeting have come down to say is what we have to do. And sometimes it seems like we're on a program of our own on the special needs buses because I may have to meet child A's need before I can get child B home, although child B may be living closer. So if you see my special ed buses out there driving in what appears to be circles, there's probably a plan for it. And thank God they can do that because it takes care of all those needs. I counted roughly, we got 150 kids that have those needs. That's a lot. It's a big percentage. It is a special group. If you have specific questions about specific kids, feel free to ask. I may or may not be able to answer your questions, and I may have to look at it. Yesterday, my drivers specifically had questions of why did this one was a shortened day last year, but not this year. There was a meeting for an ARC meeting that occurred over the summer that said last year they could not ride with anybody else. They had to be picked up alone, but they made progress during the year, so we adjusted, and now they're on the bus with the rest of the kids. Still a special bus, but feel free to ask me about those. If I don't know the answer, I'll look it up. But here is the biggest crunch of my time today, and it affects all of us. Preschool. Preschool transportation is scheduled to start on the 27th. That is the week after preschool starts. They have a week that it is in their policy that they have to be parent transported. We do not cover them. The 27th is the first day that the kids are on the bus. How many of you have had preschoolers on your bus before? This is new this year. If you had a paid monitor last year, and are you all right? I just want to make sure. Do you need help? You're good. He's good. He scared me there for a second. If you had a paid monitor last year and your monitor was 16 years or older and they were already receiving a paycheck, they do not have to fill out new paperwork. That is a big change from last year. So like in the years before, everybody had to fill out new paperwork. If you were a student monitor, you had to fill out new paperwork. So let me go back because I realize we have a lot of new people. So your student monitors are the people who are already riding your bus. On a rare occasion, we can steal one monitor from one bus and move them over, but every bus driver should have their own monitor. How many of you already know the student you're going to choose? Yeah. Craig, I'm pretty sure yours is on the list. If you've used those, one thing that I regret about coming off of driving is I have a student who is a senior this year who has been my monitor on my bus since she was 12 and who's been on my bus since she was in second grade. Ramsey, are you okay? What is it with y'all tripping today? Everybody's tripping. So I regret that I'm not going to finish out with her, but I automatically knew that my Jalen was going to be my monitor. She would not have to fill out new paperwork this year. She's already in our system. She already has an ID number. She already is established. Yes, Pat? So we will be passing out a new permission slip, and I'm taking that on myself to make sure those students get that. But I'm going to ask every driver to contact me with your bus monitor. So I know if they're on this list, and I will personally deliver the packet that they need to fill out, if not. So you have two kinds of monitors on your bus. We have new people who don't know this. So some of you already got it figured out, great. Some of you are going on to new buses. You will have about 1 week. We start on Thursday, and on the next Wednesday, I need a bus monitor for everybody because training does not happen overnight. We as the training department have to sit down with these monitors every year. Even though they're an established monitor, we will still sit down and train them every year to make sure they remember what they need to be doing. So that does not happen overnight. I need your monitor suggestion within a week so that we can get their paper and we can get their training done before the 27th. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but those new people that are over 16 are going to have to be put into the system through the Board of Education downtown, and it takes a minute. The HR office can't just pop that up and make that happen overnight. So I need everybody to do that. So if you've never had a kid as a preschooler on your bus, you may not realize that they are special little people, and as much as they want to be behaved, they just can't. It just doesn't happen. So your student monitor is your eyes and ears in contact with that student so you can drive. I'm having flashbacks in my head of a kid. I was driving. I did not have a good monitor. My Jalen was off. I had a substitute monitor, and she needed to be trained along with my preschooler. And I look up, and my monitor is reading her phone while the student is standing in the seat beside of her. Those are things that we don't want to happen. That's why we want to train our monitors and make sure they're ready to go. Can you have a monitor that is under 16 years old? Yes. Yes, you can. As much as I would like to say that we all have a trustworthy crowd of high school kids, we don't. I had a whole section of boys one time that I could not trust. None of them were going to be my bus driver. That's how Jalen, at the age of 12, became my bus monitor, because she was a very trustworthy 12-year-old. So you can have them in middle school. They will not be paid. It's called a volunteer position. So when you go to the table where all your paperwork, your timesheets, your pre-trip forms, and all that, there will be a volunteer packet for those monitors under 12, and there will be a over 16 paid monitor packet. I don't know why that was so hard. Felt like I was speaking in tongues for a second. So those two things will be on that table. You will not have to chase me down to do that. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, we cannot force a student on your bus to be a monitor. This question did come up. Can I just tell somebody that they have to be the monitor? No, you cannot. They have to agree to it, and so do you. The other thing I want to say is, yes, on rare occasion, we have used upper elementary students, like a fifth grader. That is not my preference. If we can get away from that, if we can get away with not doing that. But maybe you got a fifth grade sibling to a preschooler, or you have a cousin that's riding the bus that knows that preschooler. That could be a possibility, but if we can stay middle school and high school, that would be my preference. Anybody got any questions? Well, the sad thing is, we have no clue. So they are still doing taking intake. They are still adding kids to that list. When I talked to them last week, they told me that they would most likely be the week school started before they had a clue, and even then they weren't sure they would have a final answer until the next week. So when I know when I'm like saying on the 14th that I need your people, I'm hoping by the 14th I actually have a list of students to give you guys. Yeah. I want you all to identify, and as much as I don't like to say assume, it's best to assume that you're going to have one. Yes. Well, currently our transportation is based on the availability of monitors. So we would have to look at that individual situation as it occurred. Could I put that kid on another bus? I hope not. Could the parent really transport and just was vaguely wanting to know information? Possibly. So if that happens, let me know, and we'll look at that on on basis. And we've talked about that before, but honestly, it hasn't happened a whole lot. Brian, what was your question? It is a 1 to 5. Now, I like to stack my monitors. So on my bus, I never had that. I always had like 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. That's where if you got a volunteer monitor, and I always told my volunteer monitors, you are a monitor in training, because if you're my volunteer and you keep going, I will promise somebody in front of you will graduate and you will be the next paid monitor. So I don't like to do 1 to 5. That's hard. Pat. Yes. Yeah. No, there are some that cannot. And there are some kids that cannot. So one of the things that your monitors, for those of you who've never had monitors, student monitors, they actually take that student to the stairwell, down the stairwell, and do hand-to-hand to the parent. So we try real hard not to make those kids cross the road. But occasionally that will even happen, and they will even have to take that kid across the road. So if you have a monitor that has 3, 4, 5 students, they have to leave that seat and leave those kids unattended while they take another student off the bus. That's where the problem comes in. So we don't want it to be that way. I don't mind training. Listen, training one bus monitor is no different than training 5. And I don't mind going into the high schools and middle schools and training 5, 10, 20 monitors at a time. That just makes us more for our bang. And then you have a substitute when that happens. The only caveat to that is I'm going to say if you have more than one volunteer over the age of 16 that's going to be paid, you're very clear in your speech with them that only one person gets paid at a time. So if Billy is the monitor and Billy's getting paid, but there's also Sally on the bus, Sally cannot be paid at the same time. I can't pay both of them. Does that make sense? No double dipping. Brian? So you can split their time. So Billy wants to be the morning monitor and Sally wants to be the afternoon monitor. That's perfectly acceptable. That was a good question, Brian. You took your smart Cheerios today, didn't you? Yeah. Anybody else got questions? I don't even know what time it is. Have I went overtime, undertime? Huh? At this point, we don't matter. All right, questions? Anybody questions? All right, before I leave, my SPED monitors, if you will see me at break, my SPED drivers and monitors, I have your timesheets. I will be at the tables out front. If you have not gotten a trip sheet, what is that called? A trip sheet sign up, a trip sheet, a letter of declaration, I don't know, however fancy you want to put it. If you have not seen Daisy, she will take those out to the front table too, and those will be accessible. Marshall. Okay, so let's do a field trip question because we like to do it all. Oh, you got one. Good. Anybody got questions about field trips? We'll go backwards today. Listen, I lived years on field trips. I can't see who's waving at me, but sure, whoever's waving at me. Hey. So what would they be getting credit for? Yes. Yes, and if they're doing a leadership, something where they need volunteer hours for community service. He's talking about community service volunteer hours. Most of those volunteer sheets you can, as the bus driver, can sign. If you run across one that asks for the supervisor, just bring it to me and I'll sign it and let you guys do it. Yes, we can. They can do preschool monitor as a volunteer for community service hours. Oh, look at you. That was a smart one, too. I didn't think about that one. So on the timesheets for your student monitors, let's talk about some basics. This requires you to be the trainer. It requires you. I wish that we could just hand them a timesheet, but these are basic life skills that most of our students do not possess yet. I call it just life training with my kids. If they are if they are new to working, they probably still have not done a paper timesheet. You go to McDonald's and there's a teenager working, how did they sign in? On a computer. You go to Walmart or Kohl's and you have a student working, how did they sign in? Computer or a card. Most of them have never even conceived that there's a paper trail and a paper timesheet. So you're going to have to teach them the skill. And the number one thing is do it in ink. Please don't submit a timesheet in pencil. Number two, go back to the top, just like our own timesheets, they have an employee ID number. I have those employee ID numbers for those kids who've been in it. I want you to start teaching that. That's not something that we've done in the past. But just to be honest, if I can teach that kid their own employee ID number, I don't have to remember it and do it on every timesheet. They need to fill it out fully with their name, with their school, and the bus number. And this comes into play in the form that, I need to go back and cross-reference something quickly. I need to be able to look at it. If you've got more than one kid paying, I'm going to stack up your 2 or 3 monitor papers and make sure there's not any overlapping. Because if there's overlapping and it goes to Kathy Black at the central office, she's going to be calling me and saying, why did you do that? So I like to do my homework ahead of time and not get called to the principal's office. So if you have multiples, this has 7 to 7:30 and 3:30 to 4. I'm going to point out to you that those are not hard times. Some of you will have monitors that have more or less times. Stick it to the closest 15 minutes for everybody's sanity. Don't be like 7:26. And we all have those kids. I had one of those kids on my bus. She was a very detailed person. She got on the bus at 6:53, and she got off the bus at 7:26. I was like, you've got to stop. So stick it to the closest 15 minutes. What? Especially not you. You only do 3 stops and turn around twice. You walked right into that one. Yes. I couldn't help it. I should apologize, but that was funny. That was just funny. Hey, Mosley, you have the radio. I have a microphone. There you go. So no overlapping. Do it in pen. Fill it out fully. If they're not there a particular day, cross it out. If their student is not there a particular day, they do not get paid. Cross it out. So on this section that says the preschool student's name, I do need the student's name, and I do need the initial of the person. Why is the person's name Jerry Mann, but the initials are JB? Oh, yes. See, that would have been, I was thinking I did that. Yes, those are the driver initials. So what I did with mine, and it's just a suggestion, y'all have to do you and do you boo and like figure it out. But my student monitor had a clipboard that had their timesheets on it. I checked off the days as the kids at the end of the day. So like when I filled out my timesheet, I picked up their clipboard and went ahead and initialed the days that the student was there. It's easier to keep up with it. If you can remember 5 days in a row, more power to you. I'm old. Some days I can't remember 5 days in a row. The driver does do that. Yeah, look, it says John Bus Driver, which without my glasses, I also thought it said John Budweiser. So, yeah, I know. I loaned out my glasses. All right, so anybody clearer or confuser on timesheets for your bus monitor? You all right? All hearts and minds clear? You all right? It's you, buddy.